Hello, welcome back to the MadeMan channel. And here today in part 7 of our law-friendly car for San Andreas series, we're gonna be making the trunk, the under the car, what is it, undercarriage, I don't know, and adding the engine to our car, which is a Camry in my video, I guess. So before we start, like the video, subscribe to my channel, support me via Patreon, and of course check the workshop. And just like I mentioned before, my latest release, go check it out. So let's start now. We have here from part 6 where we started texturing, UV mapping the car. We have the car looking like this, and so now we're going to start adding like parts to the car. What am I talking about? Let's say like the undercarriage or whatever it's called. I don't know what even the word it is, but we're gonna start by separating the rear bumper from the rest of the car. So select these, these, and then we just separate by selection, and we can rename these to bump rear. Okay, so basically our rear bumper, not damaged bumper, is now separated, and so we have this little empty space. So we're gonna add our, when in the game, when you damage a bumper, it falls off. There's gonna be like some kind of mesh. You'll see what I'm talking about when I finish. So I'm gonna make this right here as we speak. Let's go to this side. Just extrude a couple of vertices at the back, like this, and we just create some faces. Let's mark the sharp because now we're gonna extrude them downwards, like this. Show our bumper. Make sure that it doesn't go too far, that it exceeds the bumper, of course. We don't want that. And then now we have this. Now we're gonna create some faces to fill up this little gap here. So we just extrude some vertices, basically. Don't forget to turn on the snap so that you can actually snap to the bumper and make sure that there's no holes here, basically. Let's flip this one. This one is wrong side. There we go. Let's mark a couple of stuff sharp like this. That will do. Let's also mark this one sharp. There we go. Now we have this section, and we can change the material to the generic 001, basically. Just like this, like, our generic stuff on the front, because they use the same material. So assign it right like this, and then we start mapping this. So go to back, project from fill, and usually this part of the car, I don't know what they call it, under this bumper, it's usually mapped to this. So we're gonna map like this, basically. There we go. And then we map this one. There we go. We have this section mapped. Now with the top left, we just have the top one. Wait, no, let's project from the back instead, because this is easier. Yeah, there we go. This one should be better. And there we go. Now we have this little section that like covers the car. When you damage the bumper, it falls off, and you see this part. And now we can repeat this on the front bumper, doing the exact same thing now. name this one bump front okay, basically bump underscore front underscore okay. This is how the internal game works. It calls these parts bump underscore front, bump underscore rear, and all that, basically. There we go. We have one setup for the front and one setup for the rear now. We can, and now we can make like a slot, a section, whatever it is again, for the wheels. So we start with the rear one. We can basically do this. Basically select 4, like around 4 vertices. Let's see. Yeah, this will do. And then extrude them into the car enough that, you know, there's a room for wheels, for the wheel, like this. No, like this. It should do. And then we just, you know, make sure they're like straight, like this. Maybe a little more space. It doesn't really matter if the wheel clips through or not. The wheel, you know, it doesn't really matter. There's no like internal collision that, oh, if you make it too shallow, the wheel will hit the wheel well or whatever it is, and you can't turn. No, that's not a thing in San Andreas, so it's fine. Now we just hide these wheels, and so make a face like this. There we go. Yeah, let's mark this sharp. No. Let's mark this sharp. And these as well. And now we just fill the faces in, basically. There we go. Now again, just like most of the car that we've done so far, on the underside we use the generic no spec, no environment map. So for this car, generic 001 again, and we just map them. And so different modders have their own ways of mapping this part, as far as I can see. So in my older mods, I usually use this area, but I think I've changed since to use something like this instead. It doesn't really matter because most of the time it's going to be hidden under the wheels, you know, so you can't really see it. It really doesn't matter much, so I'm just gonna put it here or something. That should do. It's fine. It doesn't matter. And then we map this section, which again, it doesn't really matter where, but I use this region for it. So something like this. Yeah, there we go. It doesn't really matter that the top looks kind of stretched, because again, it's hidden under the wheel, or rather above, but the wheel is in the way. It doesn't really matter. And so now that we have the rear one done, we basically do the same for the front. Gonna add a little bit of an axle to the front, but only the front, because, you know, as I have mentioned a bunch of times now, the rear one is always going to be covered by the wheel, but the front one, when the hood is open, you can see through to the whole car, to the ground, to the road, and it's gonna look very funny when you have a car driving around, but without an axle, so the wheels just like looking like it's floating mid-air. And it's especially visible if you look you flip your car, right, and the engine is visible, the hood is visible, and there's no axle, and that looks weird. Same for the top. You look down when the hood is gone, and you see nothing, and it's gonna look weird. So we're gonna add an axle for the front one. So we can add this by, let's just go to edit mode. Just add like a cube, and that should do something like this. Let's just move it to the sides first, and we delete these faces so that it's hollow. And let's see, we move them to the, we just show the view, the front one, move to the center, like the hub. There we go. And then we mark him sharp, rotate by 45 degrees, and then to the front view, move this one to the center, like this absolute center of the screen, the world. So something like this should do. Yep, it's lining up. And then we move this one to somewhere in the middle of the wheel, like this. Like this should do. And then we move these ones up a little bit, so give it a little bit of an angle. Maybe this is still too thick, so we can make it smaller. Yeah, this should be the thickness that we need. And now we shade smooth to make him smooth, of course. And we assign them to the generic 001 again, and we map it. And so it should be somewhere like, where should I map it actually? Let's say this one should do. I see some cars using this one as well, so it does work. Yeah, that works. Yeah, there we go. Now we have the front axle, only the front that's needed. And here we go. Now we have this. And now basically, from now on, as you can see right now, the mirror modifier is still on. You make a change to one side, the other one also follows it. But now we're gonna go to a point that you're gonna have to apply the modifier, so you can start adding stuff that are not mirrored on a car. Let's say like the engine, obviously, and like the interior coming up, and so yeah, or like the exhaust or the underside. So do yourself a favor, save to a separate file so you can return if something goes wrong. Mine is file number 10 now. And now you can start applying the mirror modifier by, you were here, right? You in the materials menu, go to the modifier properties, click on this little arrow next to the mirror modifier, apply it, and there we go. We have the whole car has been mirrored and applied. So if you make change to one side, it doesn't affect the other side. So yeah, that's all you need. Now we can also apply them to these as well. And now we can, maybe this is a little low, too high up. Yeah, okay. Now I got it right. We're gonna, after we have applied our mirror modifier, we're gonna add parts to our undercarriage. So please tell me in the comments if you guys know what the actual word for these things are. This under section, this wheel section, anywhere in the car, because I'm not really a car guy in real life, so I don't know much. I don't know how to drive a car. I don't know how to maintain a car. I only know how to make one for the game. So yeah, if anyone knows, comment in, put it down in the comments. And now we reached the front wheels. We actually have to leave like a little bit of a hole because the engine bay like goes through the ground. Again, as I mentioned before, you can see the road when you have the hood open, basically. So we can do it by selecting these vertices on the wheel wells, I think it is what it's called, and extrude, apply, and just scale it down the x-axis. Something like this should do. This kind of thickness is enough. And again, from now we just fill up like usual. Okay, now we have these the holes filled except the engine bay. We can select it again, use the material, generic 01, assign it, go to the top, project from view, and now we have this to map this onto this, obviously, this section of the generic texture. And I think from what I observed from the normal cars, this is the front, this is the rear. So the front has a hole, so now we have the undercarriage mapped. Now we're on to the engine bay, I guess. Let's go with the engine bay now. We can start by separating the hood from the whole car, the rest of the car. And so we separate this from the car and just call it bonnet underscore OK. I believe it's a British thing. I don't know. We call it hood. It's America in the game. We call it hood, I think. But in the internal, I think it's a British term because Rockstar is British, maybe. I don't know. Bonnet. There we go. Now we have this hole for the engine bay. So we're gonna start by making the seam corner. What is it called? I don't know, guys. Please help. And then we can start with the sides, I guess. Let's just make we can do both sides at once. Yeah, we can do both sides at once. So select both sides, like 4 corners. Extrude it down. Scale it by the x-axis to make it smaller like this. There we go. Now we make him into a little bit of a ring. It's not really a ring, more like a hole again. Maybe this one is too far deep. So we do this. And now we basically fill the sides in first. Start with the sides, yeah. This should do. We just mark the corners sharp again, because the mapping won't be continuous if you create a seam. And we don't want a seam because it will mess up the normals a lot. And there we go. Now we have filled up our engine bay corners, edges. I don't even know what they're called. It doesn't matter. And we have both sides. So we're gonna start mapping them. But before that, we need to have the right materials. So because it uses, the standard generic texture, but this section has it's a primary color thing. So basically it changes the color like the rest of the car because it has the ambient shading in the green color, like the primary color. So we need to have this material, otherwise when you import it to the game, it's gonna always be white, which is obviously wrong. It just like in real cars, they change colors. So we know that the material is now primary.001, and so you can go to the chassis model, add a new material, but not add a material slot. Go to the ball, go down to the primary.001, and now we have the proper material for this. It will always change the color like with the rest of the car. which is exactly what we want. So now we can map this stuff. Let's start with the size because they are the same, so we can map them at the same time. And project from top, and let's mirror it to the like this, so it overlaps, so we can do it both at once. And these are the outer corners, the straight ones are the inner corners, and we can map them right here. The black line is basically the outer corners, outer edges, and the opposite is the inner, of course. So we can rotate minus 90 degrees, so we have the correct rotation, and just move them into this, basically this section. Oh, I forgot to apply the material. Okay, we add the material, of course we have to assign it, so assign, and there we go. You see here, this black line is the outside, the white line is the inside, so that's good. We apply it, and now we have this one that's under the windshield, and do this, move it to this section, because it has like probably a lock or something. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but most cars in the game work like have this one looking like this. Same with the front, really. And we can do that right now. We can just map this one the same way. And there we go. Oh wait, that's a wrong alignment. Mirror by y-axis. There we go. It's outside, inside, and there we go. Now we have the corners for our engine bay. Alright, next step is to add the engine to the car. And the best way to have a San Andreas style car is, of course, to have an engine from the SS style. You maybe could try to make one yourself, but I think the easiest way is just copy from another car. And this is apparently the Camry is a transverse engine front wheel drive. It can either be a V6 or an i4, a straight 4, and I don't think I can't really tell the difference because I'm not really a car guy, but they look similar enough, and of course we have to find something similar from the game, and I have found it, and I believe I found the car, which is we just make a new file instead, because we're gonna take the engine from the car. So make a new file, import the TFF of the car. You have to extract the file like before, but I find that the Previan has like a similar engine, as you can see. So we'll take the engine from this car. So it's again, we can do the texture problem thing. There we go. Now we have the engine loaded up. We can just take the engine, I guess. And here we go. Now we have the engine extracted from the Previan. We can just select the rest of the car, I guess. No, let's do this. We can select the engine, separate it from the car, and actually, no, separate like this in the right position, and we just delete all the other stuff that we don't need. So here's the engine is chassis 0.001 over here, and just delete the whole hierarchy. Now we have the engine. Let's call this Previan engine dot TFF. Save it for now. Maybe we need them. No, before exporting, go to the materials and just remove the unused slots. Make them all the same material, actually, so that we don't have them. We won't have the ENV on the engine. It really is not that necessary. So I'll just remove it. And now that's done, go to the object data properties, object properties, and go to the tick this option, export custom split normals, and it will actually keep the sharp edges. So yeah, now export it again. So we have a proper engine model. Now we can go back to the SROP or your car, the car of your choice. Import the TFF. Import the engine. And delete the collection. And now you see it doesn't have any textures. It's fine. We just, change the material into generic 001, and there we go. Everything is in place. And now we can merge maybe. Also, I forgot one thing. Before we go any further, we should mark this like exporting option for the TFF, because it can break the car if you have the wrong options. So we can go select the object, one object at a time, go to the object properties, and scroll down to the export object of Dragon FF. So we have these options as a default, right? What we can do to have the proper normals, we just untick these vertex colors. We don't need them. Tick export custom split normals. This is important because if you don't have that on, your mark sharp thing won't be applied at all, and it will look very strange. And additionally, you can have this either on or off. Is the export bin mesh PLG. So basically, if you have this option ticked, you can import this into other software like cmodeler 2 if you need it. But otherwise, if you don't need it, you can untick this option so that the file size will be lower. Now, of course, San Andreas cars are like 300 kilobytes, so it's really not a concern, but it's up to you. I usually have this not ticked, so nasty Cmod users can import and just resell my mods. Maybe with Blender, I don't know. Whatever. I just like to have this unticked. But of course, the important thing to do here is have this export custom split normals selected, have these vertex colors unselected, and this one is your choice. Disabled means no CMOD support, enabled means CMOD support. Up to you. I have them off, and you have to do this on every single little object, basically. But when you get to the later points of the car, if you copy the object, the options will, I believe the options will stay. So that's good. So yeah. There we go. Now we have the options ticked properly. Now we can continue with what we're supposed to do. And before we add the engine to our car, I kind of forgot. We need to fill up the wall of the engine bay, of course. Make sure that all of these actually use the correct materials, and it should be generic 001. And we can map this now. It doesn't really have to be like nice looking. You just put them into a general part. Some cars have been mapped to this, some cars have been mapped to this. I'm gonna map to the undercarriage. It doesn't really matter. So it looks kind of blurry, but again, it really doesn't matter. Yeah. Same with the sides. We can map them the same place, same way. Something like this should do. There we go. Now we have the insides of our the wall, whatever it is, for the engine. And now we can finally add the engine to the actual car. There we go. We have most of the engine done, but as you can see here, this little pipe is supposed to be connected to the radiator. Now I don't know, I didn't remember how the previous was set up, but I believe they probably textured the radiator into the front like this, but we don't have one, so we can make one. We can make our own radiator. So it's pretty simple. It's just like the real life one. It's like a square, not a square, a cube, that like something like this, basically. Actually, let's move them out for a little bit because we don't need to have it inside yet. It's maybe too thick. Something like this should do. And then this height should be like this. Of course, select all of it and mark them sharp. And now we can map this. So make sure we have the generic proper one as well, proper material, like always. And then this is the radiator, so we can map them to here. Now we have the model of the radiator done. We can move them to the position that we need them to be. So something like this should do. Maybe a little too wide. We can make them smaller. Yeah, this is right. This should do. Maybe slant them like this so it actually shows. Maybe it's not so like this in real life. They're probably straight, but it doesn't really matter. We're making a GTA car. It's not a real car. And now we have all this lined up. We also have to check if anything is poking through the hood, and nothing is poking through, and it means that basically now we can just add join this with the rest of the car, I guess. Which means Control J. There we go. Now we have joined this to the rest of the car. Now we have to do the trunk. So let's just remove the boot or the trunk. Boot is more like a British thing, I believe. I don't know. Again, it's Rockstar Games. Maybe you can ask them why you call it boot. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting though when the whole thing flies out the car and you brake. There's gonna be floating lights, isn't it? Okay. Oh, it's a limitation of the game. There's nothing you can do about that, really. There we go. Now we have this hole for the trunk. It's like the easiest part of the car, so you literally need to just extrude some vertices and just map them. No problem. There we go. Now we have the trunk model done. We can first of all just shade smooth them. There we go. Now we can also we need to rename this to boot underscore OK. There we go. We can add the texture, and normally they use the interior texture, so we can go here. Oh, the Primo actually used a generic texture. I wonder what the texture for the looks like. Okay, give me a sec. Okay, whatever. We can assign the interior texture to the trunk. But interestingly enough, this the Primo uses the generic texture, but that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for this one. It's called interior, of course. What a shocker. We can add a material slot to the chassis. Just select the interior. There we go. And we assign them to the trunk. And we can start mapping them again. So let's start with like this. I believe normal San Andreas, not I believe, normal San Andreas trunk uses this section of the interior. It's also the headliner, I believe, but it doesn't really matter. A lot of the cars use this, so I use the same. We have the floor. Let's do this part. That should do. There we go. Now we have I guess we have the trunk done. And there we go, trunk is separated. And the chassis, and there we go. So now this is basically it for this part 7. So to recap, we added the trunk, we added the undercarriage, we added the engine, and so next up in the episode, on part 8, we'll be adding the interior of the car. And so for this recording session, today, this is it for today, I guess. It's gonna be a while until I have time to actually record again. And also it will probably take like a week or two to actually edit and render this on my little laptop. So maybe you're watching this like 1 or 2 weeks later, I don't know. But stay tuned for the next part, of course. Leave a like for the video. It takes a lot of time and effort to make this stuff, the tutorial, because I hope that new modders will come. And leave a like, subscribe, share to other modders or GTA players, maybe they're interested, and support my Patreon. Keep your eye on my workshop. And so thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next time, in the next video. I have speech problems, man.